Okay, so I haven't done this for a while and got a big inspiration last night and got the go ahead, so we're going to go with it. So we're doing a channeling with Saint Germain, and this is going to be about innocence. It's something I've been working with and cultivating for a long time, and got a lot of good clarity and insight about it, about what it actually is and the beauty and the power of it and the freedom of it. Anyway, I'll let Saint Germain vibration speak about it, because then I don't have to think about it. It just comes through. Okay. Wow. Okay, Saint Germain, 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 Saint Germain. I love you. Okay. Okay. One. Two. Well, a good day to you, or good evening, good morning, good moment. The moment, that's where we are, here and now, your place of power, the place of power, the only place to be, really. The rest is just mind, conjecture. Today, we want to speak about innocence. What is this mysterious, beautiful, sweet, divine presence? Well, innocence. I mean, who is innocent in your story? Children? Yes. And maybe the occasional older person. People in between? Not so much. Why? Why? What is innocent? How do you return to innocence? Or what is innocence in the first place? Innocence is one who is without attachment to story. One who is without story. Beyond the story. Or, in the case of a child, a baby, before the story. The story is a construct of the mind, of course, and the story constructs the mind in a format that gives rise to personality, identity, what we identify with. If I'm attached to what I identify with, particularly a story, then that is who I am. That is my story. That is what I identify with. That creates my personality, and that's how I interrelate with the world and the universe. But really, how does someone lose their innocence? Well, you lose your innocence when the mind forms a story about who you are. Now, this can come in the form of a tragedy, a drama, a trauma, because when you have a trauma, the mind interprets it in all sorts of ways, tries to figure it out, tries to justify it, and attaches itself to it. If you have a trauma or a drama, it can either affect you on the very conscious level, or most often, a deeply unconscious level. But the unconscious is still an identification. It's still a perception of reality. And this perception is colored by the trauma or by the story. This wounding happened, this brokenness occurred, this abuse, this neglect, this rejection, this unwantedness, this sadness, this fear. These traumas, these dramas of life do not destroy one's innocence. They mask it by putting a story over top of it. And we become identified and see the story as who we are. So a reason a child, an innocent child, is innocent is because they haven't formed a story about who they are yet. They haven't identified or become attached to an identification. They just are who they are. I am who I am. So, before the story, before the attachment, is innocence. This is being. Living from a place of being. Living in the present moment. This is what a child, particularly a young child, will do. But when they develop an identity, at the age of maybe 3 or 4 years old, maybe 5 or 6 or 7, then all of a sudden they have issues. They have patterns. They have belief systems. They have thought forms that control life, that control reality. So, how do we return to innocence? Well, we return to innocence by going beyond the story, by disidentifying with the story, disidentifying with the trauma, the drama, who you think you are, or where you come from. Of course, classic psychology and psychotherapy would say, well, you need to investigate your story, your life, to find out who you are. Yes. Yes. And the identity, yes. And the personality, yes. But what we're remembering now is the essence. The truth beyond the truth. You can have an emotional truth. This is the truth of who I am. I had this happen. My mother was like this. My father was like this. It affected me this way. It affected me that way. I had this drama happen when I was this age. Yes, that could be your truth. But what is truer? Beyond the story. You connect with who you really are. Which is not so much of an identity. There's a spaciousness there. So there's nothing really to hold on to. This is why the ego finds it very hard. Because there's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to attach to. An attachment, of course, as you know, is the root and the cause and the result of all human suffering, on whatever level you're working on. So, returning to innocence is releasing the attachment to the story of who you are. The sacred cows, so to speak. As the Buddha would say, kill the sacred cow. Whatever you find most holy about yourself. Not as in whole, but as in full of holes. So, what is your attachment to your personality? And does this really serve you? Remember your innocence beyond the story, beyond the identification. To remember this is to remember I am. I am that I am. The story will take you to the past, to the future. It will affect the mind and the emotions massively. It will cause reaction and stress and fear. But beyond the story, you remember peace, love, compassion. So, how do we let go of the story? To disidentify, to return to innocence? Well, basically, become aware. Aware of the identification and a willingness to let go of the attachment of that. What are your deep-held belief systems? What are your thought forms around who you are? Maybe positive, maybe negative. Let's start with the negative. go? Could you let them go? How attached to them are you? Well, it's who you are, isn't it? It's what you've been processing for maybe many, many years. This trauma, that drama, this abandonment, that abuse. The stories create the thought forms create the reality. So, what is the truth beyond it all? Well, you could call it many things. Spaciousness, the void, but that's a little hard for most people. Being, presence. With all of these things, there is no thing within them. There's nothing to really latch onto or identify with. And to the ego, this is very scary. Very scary indeed. Because the ego always wants to be something or someone. So opening to this awareness of spaciousness, of the great silence, of the stillness of being. Now this is a very masculine spirituality. The stillness, the silence, the spaciousness of being. This is the ultimate. Yes, but most spirituality is quite masculine, because that's who's been running the show. But what is feminine? What is beyond the story in the feminine? Innocence, yes. But what's most of the stories about? Most of the stories of the drama, the traumas, are simply that, drama, trauma, pain, suffering, brokenness, woundedness. So, yes, you could be identified with that. Are you broken? Are you wounded? Most people are. And your parents broken or wounded? Mostly. On some level, yes. So what is beyond that? Well, in the feminine is wholeness. I am whole. You see, the story goes is that what we identify with, what we attach to, becomes our reality creation. So, do you identify with being broken? Or do you identify with being wounded? Maybe not consciously, but deeper down, do you? Are you always trying to fix yourself, heal yourself, transform yourself? Or have you resigned to the depression, the fear, the anxiety of daily life? Now the way it works is when things come at you, projections from other people, stories, energies from the government, from the system, from the media, in some form, it triggers things. And what people have is attachments. So, this is who I am. Is it really? This is a wound. I was abused when I was 4 years old. That's my story. It's quite a large one, yes? A little bit furry, but somehow comfortable. So, if I'm identified with that, then if someone projects maybe anger, because that was part of the original abuse, there was anger involved, then ting, this fires, this activates, and I feel this, and I feel that, and I think this, and I think that, and I spiral into this depth and darkness. We have these all over, and they get triggered, activated by life. Have compassion for them. Yes. Love them. Love your truth. But it's not who you are. If you're identified with that, you'll keep looping it over and over and over again. And it'll keep getting triggered, and you'll keep manifesting it in your relationships and your living situations. And you can work through it, love it, embrace it, accept it, yes. But it's the identification with it. It's the root of all the trouble. So, this says, I'm wounded. I experienced an abuse, and it broke me. Really? That's my truth, yes. On the egoic, very third-dimensional level. Personality, which is what most people see, is all of reality. But what is more true? Truer. I am whole. The wholeness is waiting for itself to be remembered. Like innocence is waiting for your return to it. In the feminine, in the essence, she is whole. Always has been. Always will be. And yet the base perception of the feminine in this reality is woundedness, is brokenness, is pain, is being abused, suppressed, denied. That's the identification with it. All these wounds, all these stories. Yes, that may be the truth. But what is truer? What is beyond the story? The goddess, the divine mother, the divine feminine, is waiting patiently in her wholeness to be remembered. That would be a good identification. You can identify with woundedness, with brokenness, or you could identify with wholeness. That's a choice. And even if you know your wholeness, you have connected with this divine goddess, this divine mother that's here all the time, there still may be a few stick-ons, story stick-ons. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. Oh, poor me. Oh, she does this to me. He does that to me. He did this, she did that. I do this, I do that. All of that. Have compassion for these, but from a place of wholeness. That's the truth. A higher truth, a deeper truth, a more truer truth. Identify with that. That's a happy lady. That's a happy feminine. That's a happy goddess. So in the masculine, we identify with also brokenness, woundedness, insecurity, anxiety. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. I don't deserve it. Why does this happen to me? Even truer, is spaciousness. beyond the ego identity. I am that I am. The divine. God. Compassion. Compassionate spaciousness. Imagine identifying with that. The compassionate spaciousness of being. That would be a beautiful thing. To identify with something that doesn't have a specific identity. So, I am spaciousness. I am compassionate spaciousness. And I am wholeness. I am innocent wholeness. That would be wonderful superpowers to reactivate, to re-enliven, to re-embody, to go beyond the story, to return to innocence. That's where you'll find yourself, your real truth. Out there, beyond the right and wrong, the good and bad, the higher, the lower, the black and the white. Out there beyond all of those stories. I'll see you here. Thank you very much. I am innocent. And I know the truth of you. You are innocent. Your stories, I acknowledge them, I honor them. Your identity, your wounds, much compassion. But I know it's not who you are. Out there beyond all of that, in here, beyond, before, and within all of that, I am that I am. And that's where you'll find the oneness, the wholeness, the love that you remember. Thank you. Much love.